basics. So the only place you can access forms in our system is using the Forms tab and Form List. So that makes it pretty easy. That's the only place you can go to forms in the system. Now, the forms that I've created in here for you, a couple things I want to go ahead and point out. As you create forms, they will always be listed alphabetically in your form list. If we hover over our forms, we can edit our form. That's going to bring us into the form builder, which is what we're going to do in just a moment to start making edits to your form. Taking this form is a very useful tool. At some point, somebody may call you and say, Amy, I cannot figure out how to take this form online. Can you just take it for me? Can you just sign me up? Or here's an email with my information. Or, you know, even just a registration form. I want to come to your event. I just don't have time to register. Can you just sign me up? You'll be able to select take this form and then choose that member from your drop down. You can search members by using the search bar up here, or you can just proceed as a new member, and that's going to create a profile for that new member.
Hey, Adrian, real quick, did Elliot talk to you about
he did.
doing this? Okay, all right.
It sounded like we just needed to create some custom attributes that we're going to collect additional information on your members. Like basically we're just kind of building out the demographics that you already have on your members. Is that right?
No, this is related to the assigning educational history for 2018. So as part of our migration. So there's a big issue with translating, importing the data, our educational history for our members, the way that the current programming is built doesn't work with member clicks. So so we talked to Elliot about really the data that we need for our members is their 2018 educational data, so that when they go to renew for 2019, they'll have their 2018 education credits. And since we're only in February, I thought we could go through and create forms for each of the classes each of the sessions that have happened January up to now, and then assign them to the members. But Elliot was saying something about, you know, I didn't want to fill out a form for each individual member. I wanted to have a form and then click on the members that attended that class, that session. So, he said he was going to talk to you about that.
Yeah, he did. There's not a way that you can like en masse take a form for people. But isn't
this doing it? So
no.
On the screen, but it gives you all of those different people that you can click on.
But you can only choose one at one time. You can't choose. I don't have a way to choose multiple.
Silly.
The way that I thought that Elliot explained it was that he was going to, or that I was going to create, I thought the way he explained it was like I was going to create a custom attribute that was going to have all the classes that people came to so far, and you were just going to check off in all their profiles for everybody all the classes that they came to versus taking a form for every individual. Would that work?
No, I think in the way that we went through that option, and I think that that we just decided that wasn't work. Because it didn't contain enough information about the particular class.
I mean, she could give it to us with everything that we need, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's going to be like one big line of information.
What if we created one form with all the different classes, and you can just sign them up through one form versus having to take like 10 forms for one person?
I'm not following that.
How many classes have you guys had so far?
Probably 15 to 20.
And okay, and how many people come approximately per class?
Anywhere from 10 to 50.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, instead of me creating 15 to 20 forms, each one containing information about the different classes, what if I created like one master form where it would have all the registrations, all the information for all the classes? So that way, if you're registering Aaron Brown and he came to 10 of the 15 classes, you don't have to take 10 forms for Aaron. You can take one master form, and it would have a row of checks where you would basically say, okay, he came to this class, he came to this class, he came to this class.
So then on his profile, would it just list those classes that we select for him from the master form?
It would, in any form submission, it will only list one form submission for that, but you would be able to view in an Excel spreadsheet, because you can export the form submission fields. You'd be able to view all of the classes he came to.
So we need an option where the member can look at their profile and see what classes they've attended up until this point. They need to be able to see on their profile what education they've gotten from PFAC at any given time.
So far.
Yeah.
It feels like it should be a custom attribute to me.
But then they're going to have to go to two different places. They're going to have to go to submissions, and then they're going to have to go to custom attributes, and then combine those in order to see what they have for the full year. And they're going to get really
then the only way to do it is for you to you're going to have to take we'll have to create 15 to 20 forms to capture all of those classes, one per class, and then you guys would have to go in and take it per person, per form.
Okay, so we're going to have to do this really, this is going to have to be like first priority, because the more days that tick by, the more classes, the more meetings happen. Like the next, and I want to, it's going to take us a long time to do that. So,
yeah.
if we look at the event calendar, the next, there's 3 meetings this week. There's a Long Beach chapter meeting, there's a Silicon Valley chapter meeting, and then a Northern Region board and dinner meeting. So that happened on the 7th and the 8th. So the more time so we should be starting to do this like
now.
Now.
Yeah. Okay. So are they all, this chapter meeting registration form that you guys sent me, are they all pretty similar in what the forms look like?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna let me.
Would you agree with that? What I'm saying, Kimberly?
Yeah. I know I sent David I need a list of everything we've done this year.
Well, we have it on the event calendar.
No.
That we've already had.
Mm-hmm. It tended to disappear. I don't trust it.
Okay. All right. Go ahead. Sorry, Adrian.
No, you are totally fine. So this is the form that each of these need to look like. Is this the right one?
That's the application. So we need, and that's the survey.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess what we need is a combination of the application and a registration, because currently our webmaster creates a back-end he creates a system where people can register online. They click a box and register online, and we don't have a form for that. So so what we need is we need the application that you had up just a minute ago. We need that, and
then we need chapter meeting registration.
And then we need a registration mechanism, and I guess we don't know that because we haven't gone through that training yet. Like, how do people register for?
Okay. Do you have something that your members typically do? Are they basically just RSVPing? Like, is it just, are you attending this class, yes or no? Or are there additional questions?
If you go to PFAC, go to the main website, pfac-pro.org. And I'll show you. and go to event calendar up at the top. And then scroll and then go to the meeting on the 7th, the Long Beach chapter. And then go to more, click here for details and registration. So this is what they see, and then you go to click here to register online. And this that's the form that they use.
That's what we need.
Okay, so let's maybe, instead of doing the membership application, focus on how we can get these completed. Sound good?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. 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 So I'm going to pull this off to the side. I'm going to get rid of...
Sorry to interrupt your training, but this is all like really current and we need to get a solution.
No, yeah, you guys, whatever is most important for you guys is what, you know, is the best way for us to use our time. So I just want to get some of this. Okay, that'll work. Okay, so I'm gonna do the training, and also simultaneously we're gonna get this form created and try to update this and get as many of these forms created as possible, so you aren't having to create the forms and take them. Instead, you just have to like take them, which I'll take you through that process on how to do that as well. So you guys are going to have, and this is a great segue, you guys are going to have a ton of forms in here because you have so many classes, which means one of the things I was about to point out after this take this form piece, we have these 3 horizontal dots. You can copy your forms. Copying your forms will be your best friend, because instead of having to create a new form from scratch every time you have a new class, you can just copy from a template. So what I'm going to do to begin with is just create a template, and then I'm going to walk you guys through the steps on how to update that template with information specific to you all. So that's going to be kind of step 1. The second thing that I really wanted to talk to you guys about is this delete button. Once a single submission has been made on a form, the form is no longer being able to be deleted, because we're able to collect information on your members and store it in their profiles from our forms, and because we're able to house form data, like historical data, in the members' profiles. And if we deleted the form, all of that would be gone, which would be bad. So that means that over time, you guys are going to have a ton of forms in the system. Just like those 15 to 20 forms that have already come and passed, instead of like, once you take all those forms for the members that have already come, they're not just going to hang out in this area. We can actually change the status to archived to kind of get them out of the way. And then if we ever needed to go back and revisit those again, we can always select show archived forms, and that'll bring them back up so we can view them. We can also copy from there, restore, you know, make them published again, all that kind of good stuff. And then the last item that I wanted to talk about was you also have a search bar in the top right-hand corner. So for all of your forms listed in this area, you can always search your forms to find the form that you're looking for. Now, when we create a form, we're selecting this Create a Form button in the top left-hand corner, and we're going to get a pop-up. We're going to call our form by a form name that makes most sense to you guys. This form name is internal. It is not what your members will see. So you can name it whatever is best for you all.
Just how I remember it.
Except it's the we're talking about the registration form. So it's meeting registration form.
All right, the second piece to this is we need to determine what type of form we're creating. Now in this event, we're creating an event registration, exactly. This is just determining what body of the form we're using. So we might be creating a membership application. Obviously we would use that for the membership application. You do have the ability to use both of these. So if you wanted to use somehow these in conjunction, you could do that. But the more important item that I wanted to mention is you don't have to select anything. You can create what we would call a general form. A general form would be used for a survey, a donation, anything that wouldn't fit into one of these two categories. So if you ever get to this point and you're like, well, it's not for membership, it's not for an event registration, don't feel like you have to check either. You can just leave this blank, okay?
Okay.
I'm going to check event registrations because this is an event. And at this point, I'm going to hit save. Creating this new form, once we hit save, it's going to bring us into the form builder. Now, before I start talking about the form builder, any questions up to this point?
Nope.
Okay. Awesome. So the right-hand side of our form is a rough draft of our form. It's just what our form will look like, but it's not pretty yet. It's not in a template. This meeting registration area consists of different sections. Most of these are built-in sections in every single form. They're all going to look the same. The first being the login section. For class registrations, the login section always has to be turned on. This is what recognizes the member. This is what saves the form submission in their profile. This is what allows form submissions to be searchable. It's what allows confirmation emails to be sent.
So so people who aren't members our policy people can register as a non-member. So will they be able to? Okay, great.
They'll sign in as a new user, and in doing so, they'll put in their email, a pop-up will come up, they'll put in a password. It can be as simple as the number 1, and at that moment, a prospect profile has been created for them.
Great.
Sometimes I get pushback, sometimes I get pushback on the prospect profile being created for those guys, but like if you don't have a profile for them, all of the history, all of the things they've come to won't be held anywhere. It'll just be kind of like floating out there. And not attached to anything. And then in addition to that, by creating a prospect profile, you now have allowed yourself to be able to email these individuals to say, you know, hey, we've seen you come to these classes. Yeah.
And the system will recognize their email address, so it won't duplicate their entry, I hope.
It will, right? Yeah. So if I already have an email address and I try to, and I'm like, I don't want to deal with putting in my email address right now. I'm just going to come in here as a new user. If I put in an email address that already belongs to a profile in the system's going to give me a big red warning, and it's going to say, you already have a profile under this email. Please click here if you forgot your password. The only thing that I am going to kind of disclaim here is that people have multiple emails.
Yeah,
right.
I totally get that. They could be the same person. It could get duplications based on them using a different email.
Exactly. So if I signed in here as adrianleewarren@gmail.com, and then I come in here and put adrianleewarren@gmail.com, and I thought my password was my dog's name, Mason, and I put Mason in here, and it says, nope, this password is wrong. I may go, you know what, forget it. I'm coming down here, and I may put my awarren@memberclicks.com to get around that. And that happens more often than not, honestly, from my experience in most associations. But we are coming out with, it's in our pipeline. It's like another maybe 2 or 3 months out. We're going to create a merge data component of our system. So if that starts happening, hope is on the way.
Okay.
Where you can merge people's profiles. Okay, awesome. Okay, login section. We can click on the properties piece for the login section, and I can now see on the left-hand side exactly what I can do to customize this login section. I can change the name. So login may not make a whole lot of sense to your members. You may want to say login to register for the class or for so-and-so class. You'll notice that this is going to populate on our tab. I mentioned earlier when I created the form name isn't what the members see. That's because they see whatever name is on each tab before each section. So this is what they'll see. So this may make sense to them versus just login. So you do have the ability to turn off the login section. Like I said, I really wouldn't recommend doing that unless it was a survey or something that you didn't mind getting an anonymous form submission for.
Mm-hmm.
You can determine your login types. If you have a class that is only for existing users, you can only allow existing users. It's going to get rid of that new user piece, and now only existing users can log in.
Okay,
And
so
then
like for a members only class, for example, we would use the existing users only. Okay.
Exactly. All right, then we have, last but not least, of the login section for the element properties, multiple submissions. I would not allow multiple submissions for most of your forms, because what might happen is somebody will go, did I register for that? Or did it really take my submission? And then they're going to do it again, and they might pay again, or whatever the case may be, and it just becomes a pain for you guys. So I would typically not turn this on. If you have a donation form, I would turn this on, because people can donate as often as they want to, right?
Yeah.
What do they see if they do try and register more than once? Is that turned off? Did they get something that says,
what do they see if they try and register more than once if this is turned off?
If it's turned off, meaning they're not allowed to do multiple submissions, it'll say you've already submitted this form. You've already registered through this form. You do not have permission to view this form, or something like that.
okay, cool beans.
Yep. Cool. So that's the login section. If you wanted to change the verbiage on the existing users field or new users field, you can definitely do that just by clicking on the field. Once again, under element properties, you can edit the label text. This looks just like the editor we looked at 3 hours ago. It's pretty similar. Okay, we're going to work our way down, and now we are in the event section. This is so crucial, y'all. Note, I said they will see every label as they navigate from section to section. You do not want this to just say event section. You always want to update this tab, because that doesn't make sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
You always want this to say something like this. This is that mental disorders, categories, diagnoses, and coping strategies. You always want to have at least like some type of class name in this section, or some type of event name. Otherwise, it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Okay?
Yep.
And then you can put in the event date. I don't see one on here, but I think it was the 7th of February.
Yeah.
Awesome. Will you all ever limit the number of registrants?
Yes.
Yes.
To how many?
I'm not sure if it's limited for this one, but let's say 50.
So once I put in the number 50 here, what we can do is disable this form once 50 registrants have been met. So they'll try to take this form, and it says something like the form limit has been reached for this form, or something a little bit better than that, but something along those lines.
Can we customize that language?
We are not able to customize that language.
Okay.
Some other items that you can do, if you have, okay, for the affiliate corporate, they have the ability to register their linked profiles. So for the affiliate, if they have 10 linked profiles, the key contact could register all 10 of those linked profiles. What's really cool about this feature, so I'm going to go back to the properties for this section. When you turn this on, what happens if they select register linked profile is a pop-up comes up with all of the people that are linked profiles for that company. So they can actually choose names from the drop-down, and it will even auto-populate the form with that person's information from their profile. Is that something that you guys will be using for those affiliates?
It's very cool.
Yes. Kimberly's saying that's very cool.
It's very cool.
I think it is really cool too.
Adrian knows I'm a big geek for this system already.
Kimberly and I can geek out together over the system. Allow guest registrants. Will there ever be, like, could I bring my friend Kelly?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess.
Okay.
But they would be registering as they would have to register as a non-member. You wouldn't be able to bring a guest at the same rate.
Okay, so that's a little bit tricky, because it's more on like, it's more kind of like on Scout's Honor. Like,
yeah,
there'd have to be two options.
I would say I would say no. As this is described as guest registrants, no, you can't bring a guest.
Okay. Perfect. Then we won't worry about this. In the future, if you had an event where I could bring a guest, you can allow prospect profiles to be created for guest registrants.
Yeah. So Kimberly, this could be for like the attorney dinner.
Mm-hmm.
So we would have events like that, but this one isn't. So
yeah, perfect.
The majority of them aren't.
Awesome. I would use this sparingly, and what I mean by that is if it's an event where I could just be bringing my spouse as my guest, you probably don't want his profile as a prospect in your system because he doesn't care to get your emails because he just came because I came, right? But if it was that I could bring one of my coworkers that's really interested in your association, obviously then you would want to allow prospect profiles.
Right.
Cool. All right. And then you're going to see this edit group permissions all over the place. This just determines who gets to see this. So in this case, element properties for the properties section of the event section, that determines who gets to even see this event section. For you guys, anybody could see the event section. So it's fine to just leave it as all 9 groups being checked. Yep.
No, not necessarily. So there are meetings where they're for fiduciary members only. That means that affiliate members would not be invited. So
that's where we would take
the affiliate, uncheck the affiliates, right?
Exactly. Would I need to do that for this one, or should I leave them checked?
I think is it an open meeting, Kimberly? I think it's open.
Okay, awesome. All right. So this was the event section. We're going to come back and build this out, but I just want to quickly go through the additional sections in this form. We have a summary section. This is where your members can review all of the fields that they have filled out and the information they provided to you. For every form, even if you copy it, my suggestion is to always go in here, turn this on, edit the summary fields, and make sure they're all checked. We only have one field right now because there's only one field in our form. As we add more fields to the form, this will continue to build out. We'll have to come back into the summary section, toggle all once again, and then save. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not sure why you have to do it twice, but yeah.
You only have to do it once. I just wanted to go ahead and show it to you, what it was going to look like. If you were creating a form from scratch or if you were copying a form, after you added all of the field elements, then you would come and you would set up the property section. You know what I mean? I just wanted to go ahead and show you. I'm going to come back and do that in a second after we add more fields. Payment section. Always, always, always for every form, make sure that this is set up. We need to make sure that our payment processor is selected, and we need to make sure the correct invoice template is selected. What invoice template should we select for this one? I think this is something that still needs to be done, isn't it, Kimberly?
Yeah, those have to come out, and then we need the list of all the invoices, yes.
So the way that this is connected is if I go to Financial and Invoices, and then I'm going to go to Invoice Templates. This affiliate corporation membership, this was done a bit prematurely, so we're going to call this classes. Does this information on the invoice still fit for classes, or should I get rid of it?
That's you can get rid of it.
Yeah.
Okay. This is a notes section on the invoice itself, so you may want to add something that says for questions, please contact so-and-so, or to submit a check, please send it at so-and-so address. If neither of those apply, you can leave it blank. And then these down here are notifications that go out in regards to the registration. So if I register for a class and I paid right then when I registered, you want to make sure I receive a payment notification email. Nobody likes to pay for something and their money's just gone and they never get a confirmation, right? Because it's like, well, what happened to my money? So we always want to turn this on at least. This is at the minimum. You can edit the email. It says something super straightforward. You can leave it like this. I definitely would not specify this per class. I would keep this general. So like a payment has been made on the attached invoice for an upcoming class. We look forward to seeing you then. I would make it that specific at the most, because you don't want to have to come in here and do this, like I said, for every
Right.
class that you make. You don't also want to have to create an invoice template. But these that we have are fine. Do your members have to pay for the classes when they register, or could they submit the registration and come back and pay at a later date?
They submit when they pay when they register, or they pay at the door.
They pay when they register, or they pay at the door.
So you wouldn't want them to be able to, okay. So I would send them also a notification
They
that says,
can't do past due.
Uh-huh.
They can't pay after on the classes. They need to pay either on-site or ahead.
And this is where we have to talk, because payment, our office does not take payment for a chapter and regional meetings.
Yeah, but this is where we're changing that. We may have to change that, because this, so Adrian, Kimberly brought up an issue, and we have to resolve this internally, but just so you know, so in case you can offer some guidance.
Mm-hmm.
So the organization has, as you know, multiple chapters. Those chapters are self-supporting, so they have their own bank accounts, and they have they use the organizational EIN number, and some have bank accounts, some don't. Some have PayPal, credit card processing. Some don't. So as it's currently stood, each of the chapters collect payments for classes and put them into their own bank account, and handle the settlement of their own monies. So so I guess the question is, have you ever dealt with that before with another association? And is there an accommodation in member clicks for, what would be the way to handle, the way that I'm thinking we have to do this is that the organization, the state, takes in the money for any classes, and then we issue the chapter a check back. But have you dealt with this with any other organizations?
I've dealt with similar scenarios. So there are definitely some associations I've worked with where dues are like that. Typically they would never see the money. In this instance, I just don't know how you guys would manage, like how quick, like, so do they typically, like right now, are they submitting checks to the other, like to this outside organization, or are they?
Well, it's a chapter of the organization. So they would give, their payment is a check to that chapter, the PFAC Orange County chapter. That chapter keeps that money and pays it for expenses. They keep that money and use it for chapter expenses and that sort of thing. So, but currently there isn't any chapters that pay by credit card online, because you can't do that, because we don't have for them to do that.
So we could keep this with offline payments, where they're just sending the check to their appropriate chapter.
Yeah.
Or you could make it so that they start sending them to you, and then you can collect all of that money and write kind of like one big check to the chapter.
Yeah. I'm thinking that, one of the reasons that we're doing this is to provide more convenience for our members. And one of those convenience is online registration for events. We'll have to make a decision internally of how we're going to handle that. If the way that I'm understanding the system, and the way we've done it before with Reg Online is if a chapter wants to have online registration for their meeting, they have to agree that PFAC state will be collecting that money, and that will pay them back on, you know, some kind of terms, you know, within 30 days or whatever.
Yeah.
The system will record the income for each of those classes, right?
Exactly. Yes.
It's not going to be different. They can't. The member clicks can't send money to different places.
Right.
No, because my member clicks would never have any expense accounts. It would never.
No, I wasn't talking about that. I just didn't know how we were going to handle the fact that we don't collect state or regional or chapter.
We'll talk about it after we're off the call. Yeah, we'll handle that internally.
Okay.
But,
okay. Well,
keep going.
All right. Either way, let me know if you have any other questions on that. I've definitely seen it handled both ways. You could always keep it so that your members are just registering and not having an invoice created, and it could just say, I understand I'll be paying $25 at the door on so-and-so date, you know, something like that. But anyways, I'll let you guys think about that and then just let me know. Either way, if they are going to have an open invoice, and if they are going to have to pay it before the event, we would want to utilize all of these notifications so that they're getting multiple notifications saying, okay, you have an open invoice, you need to pay it. Okay, here's a reminder invoice or a reminder notification, here's your open invoice, you need to pay it. The invoice will be attached to each of these notifications, which is really kind of the bonus here, because that, once again, it's just making it easier for your members to remember to pay, and also they're not having to go to search and find an invoice. It's already attached to this notification, which is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we're going to go back to the form list, and I'm going to go back into that meeting or that chapter registration form, the meeting registration. Talked about the login section. We're going to come back to the event registration section itself. We've talked about the summary section. So here's this payment section. Now I didn't save that, did I? I'll go back and I'll change this again, but this is going to end up being, this is going to say classes. And Kimberly, you'll just, if you can go in there and make sure those notifications read correctly or read the way you want them to read, that would be awesome.
Right.
I'm going to change this back to classes. And once again, we want to keep these pretty generic. We don't want to make them any more specific than just classes. So here's our meeting registration form. Go down to the payment section, properties, classes, boom. Enable pay later with invoice. This is what allows the member to say, invoice me. An invoice is created that remains open until they pay it. And you can override the invoice template's due date. So the invoice template has a due date area. Typically, you would mark it as like 30 days. In this case, the event is taking place February 7th. So we would want to override the invoice due date to make it February 7th based on this form that's creating the invoice. So that's what this toggle is doing right here. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, I have a question related to, this process that we're going through right now with having to back up the classes for people for January, February. So how do we handle since we're going back in history and the people have already obviously paid, and all of that, how do we handle that in this process?
Is it the forms piece that matters or the money piece that matters, or both?
What matters is the member, showing that the member attended that class.
I just would not put a financial piece on the invoice for it. I would just basically make it like appear as though it was free, since you've done the invoicing in a separate system.
Okay, all right.
Okay. Otherwise, you're going to have a ton of open invoices. You're going to have to go back in and mark them all as paid offline. Yeah. And I just don't think it's necessary. Yeah. Okay, cool. All right, so that's the payment section. The last section that I want to talk to you guys about really quickly is the confirmation section. Once your member submits the class registration form, this little box is going to pop up with whatever verbiage you see here. You might want to, customize this a little bit just by selecting Edit Confirmation Page. and you can say, thank you, instead of your form has been submitted successfully, you might want to say your class registration. And then you might want to say something along the lines of, please make sure if you have an open invoice, this is paid prior. I won't add this text, but like, you know, make sure this is paid prior to the event, or if there is any outstanding financial, you know, if there's any outstanding invoice amount, please bring money to the door. You will not be permitted in, or, you know, whatever you want to say there. Sometimes associations will say something like, please note, no refunds 24 hours before the event, or, you know, something like that. So this is the confirmation page that will pop up on their computer. But then if you click properties for the confirmation section, you can also set up a confirmation email. So if we turn this on and edit the confirmation email, this is going to send them an email with their information. This is not only cool because it acts as a receipt for the member, but it is also cool because you guys can BCC yourselves on this. So instead of you having to come into MemberClicks all the time to see who's registering for your classes, you'll be getting notifications directly to your email. You can use that merge data tool that we talked about earlier and merge in form data, like their first name and their last name. And then as we add additional fields, there will be more fields that we can add to this.
And this can be customized for each form, right? So
exactly.
Like we can add BCCs for the people that are putting on the class. And yep. Okay, yeah.
Exactly.
Great.
Cool. All right, so now you've noticed that as I've been clicking on the properties for each section or the fields for each section, it's showing me under this element properties tab what I can customize. So anything that we are kind of customizing about a specific section or a specific field, that will show up in our element properties tab. The form settings tab, anything we do under this tab applies to the entire form.
Right.
So the form name, you can add a form description, which is internal. The form alias, just like the alias for articles, the form alias would be if we went to pfac.memberclicks.net/meeting-registration-form. That's the direct link to this form.
Mm-hmm.
The form status, whether it's published, unpublished.
A question on the alias. So okay, so I'm just following. So each form is going to be unique to each session. So each session will have its own unique alias. So, right? Is that sound right?
That is correct. Yes.
So this might be the alias for this might be meetings dash OC chapter dash 2.7.18 to show it's an Orange County chapter meeting on the 7th of February. I'm just looking at the best format for being consistent in naming the alias so that we can easily identify the links.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, and if you wanted to update that, you definitely could. So now if I wanted to come to this form, I would go to pfac.memberclicks.net/OC-chapter-7-2018.
Okay.
Your form can have an expiration date. So as of February 7th, nobody can use this form because it's expired because the event is taking place on that date, right?
But we can still see it as admins, right?
As admin, you can still see it, yes. Exactly. You can set permissions for the entire form. So once again, if, you know, like you mentioned earlier, if affiliates weren't able to see the form, you would just uncheck them.
Okay.
All right. There are two items here that I won't be able to exactly show you how they work right now. But you have date-based pricing and discount codes that are available. Date-based pricing would be if there are early bird discounts or late fees.
Yeah.
So you could set up like 10 different date-based pricings if you wanted to. So you could say like January 1st through January 10th, it is $500. And then January 11th through January 31st, it's $600. And then February 1st through February 28th, or February 7th in this case, it's $700.
We got it, Adrienne.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Perfect. Then we've got discount codes. This is most often used. What I see is like if you have a conference and a sponsor, you would want them to still register through the conference registration. You could create the discount code that would say sponsor in all caps. And when they type that in right before they pay at the end, it could wipe out the total or show the discount for the total. So you would actually create whatever you want this discount code to be.
Yeah.
And you just hit save. The last item down here is the forward URL. By default, when your member submits the form, they go back to the home page of your website. If you wanted them to be forwarded to a different page once they submit the form, you would just put that URL in this area. Okay.
And the
All right.
URL.
Right in here. So if you wanted them to go back to PFAC -pro.
Where they go after they finish the registration.
Mm-hmm.
I have a very important question.
Yes.
Are we going to get to a spot where we can talk about if we need to upload speaker materials?
Like what? Like a PDF for them to view?
Yeah.
A PDF or, yeah, the PowerPoint or whatever?
So that would be part of kind of the content, right? You would just save it in the media manager, and then in something as simple as like this text box here, you could select edit event description, and you could say like, click here to view speaker material. You'd highlight that.
Mm-hmm.
Use your site links because it's already in your media manager. Find your file. Here's your media manager folder. Maybe go to documents. I saved that go live checklist earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Let's pretend like that was the speaker material, and then you would just select insert this link.
Cool.
So this is kind of combining the two. Mm-hmm.
Great.
Awesome. All right, so element properties, we've talked about how anything under element properties is what you're changing about a specific section or a specific field. Form settings has to do with what you're changing about the form as a whole. Now we're ready to add form elements. This is what we're going to be using to build out our form, the questions that we're asking. So the first thing in your form is last name, first name. That's already asked at the top of the form. It's a built-in field. The next item is credit requested.
No, that's the application. So, okay. So let me just take a minute to explain kind of the process. So the forms that you have, one of the forms, when a chapter wants to put on a class, the application form is the form that they fill out to send to the education chair to review for credit applicability. So the class first has to be approved by the education chair for people to be able to take credit, to get credit for the class. Then there's, so that's one form. The form that we're working on now is the attendee registration form. So that's the form you went to by following the link on the calendar for the person to attend the class. So that's assuming that we already have a credit approval, a description of the class, when it happens, title, all of that. So we would, for our purposes with this catching up for January, February, we'll have to take the descriptions and titles and all of that for the already approved classes and create the registration forms in order to put the people into being registered, who took the class, show them as registered for the class, right?
Right. But yeah, you wouldn't need the forms to, right.
We don't need the
wouldn't
application form for this. Eventually we will, when we go live, we will. So there's a lot of work that we have to do internally to get ready to launch, you know, MemberClicks in its full capacity for these sessions, you know, to be able to offer the meetings.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some separation between these different things. So the form we're working on now is the registration form, but it assumes this application has already been. Well, this whole form, yeah, exactly. That's that part.
Okay, so then I would need to ask credit requested.
No, yeah, exactly. Credit requested, CE, MCLE are none necessary.
Okay, so we're going to be working a little bit backwards, and that's okay. So the first item that we have is built-in. Built-in attributes are just as they sound. These are built-in attributes that we talked about on the attribute training: physical address, contact name, email name, organization, and phone. You do ask for an email, you do ask for an organization, and you do ask for, what did I say, address, email, and organization. So to bring those into the form, I'm just going to grab and drag. So like address, I'm grabbing it and dragging it into the form.
Oh, great.
Add form elements. Built-in, we also need email. I'm just going to grab it and drag it into the form.
Well, that makes it easy.
Yep. For firm or business, I'm just grabbing organization, and then I'm just going to change the label name for this to firm or business. We always want to make sure we're updating our export name. You have the ability to export these form submissions. The export name will be the column header for that column of information in the form submission in the export. Does that make sense?
Uh-huh.
Okay. PFAC member ID. Is that a custom attribute, something we added?
Yeah. So how did the member how did the member IDs come over in the migration?
I would have to talk to Elliot about that. Yeah. Have you guys looked at that?
I don't know what you mean how they came over.
Well, how are they listed? Their member number.
They are listed by their member ID.
So can you go to the profiles? Can you go to the member profile list?
Click on John's number.
So if we wanted to look at the member numbers, I can edit the column view and I can add member number.
There we go.
Yeah, so they're under member number.
Well, can you go back to the top?
Have you done any checking?
No, oh, that's admin.
Admins are always 1, 2, and 1 and 2.
Just because they're in sequential order. But we need to, I mean, the data needs to be gone through.
Okay, go ahead.
See, all the charters are low numbers. It's all charter and emeritus.
Could they be a different? I can ask him, but I'm just wondering if you guys have talked, like, it wouldn't be board member, countries of practice, employers, language, membership history.
Number 1. But number 1 on that list is Amy Olson under member ID.
So how did, so when you were working with Elliot, how did the member number get over? How did he import the member number?
It went over in the big spreadsheet.
No, but I mean,
sent over.
But you didn't check. You haven't checked any of the member numbers.
No.
So the member number was included in the export that we sent to Elliot. And I think when we talked before, I think, we were told that the people could retain their existing member number. So I haven't gone through and checked the data yet, so I'm not sure. I guess I need to kind of look and see if those numbers are matching up.
Yeah, I'm bringing up your data now that he imported, and I have a member ID column.
Yeah, so that needed to come over, as it was assigned.
So Linda Banta was that's what it looks like. That's what he used. So if I went to Linda Banta, you guys have her as number 4.
And she's in here
as number 4.
Joan Cooper's 7091.
Okay, then
I'll spot check them. It just freaked me out because I saw you listed under member ID as number 1 on that list that we were looking at.
So I'm not. So how are the prospect numbers? Can you go back to the profile list again?
Yeah, and I mean that's something we would have to get on a call with Elliot about, because I have no idea how he would have done this.
Because I'm a little confused on how the prospect numbers were assigned, because for example, if you go to what Camberly was just saying is, who was number 1? Who's number 1? Member number 1?
There's not a member number 1 in the spreadsheet that Elliot imported. You would have been created as number 1 because you are an admin. Is there a number 1 in your spreadsheet?
Yes, Karen Anderson.
Karen Anderson.
So when I search for Karen Anderson, I should just do Karen. I have her as number 6770. Oh no, that's Karen Field. What do you have Karen Field as?
Six, seven, seven. Thanks.
I have her as 6770 as well.
But Karen Anderson is a non-member, Camberly. She's not a member.
Okay.
She's in there as a prospect, number 1 as a prospect.
Okay.
So we need to go through and check the member numbers, but it seems like they might be right.
Yes, I think and if she was
okay.
Okay, I'm gonna get rid of that. Okay. All right, so if I go back to the meeting registration form, because the member number is already associated with the number when they log in, is that something you still need to ask them for?
No, when they log in, they should be, their member number should be populated, right?
It's not, system attributes are not fields that we can add to forms. I'd have to create a separate custom attribute for it.
But what I'm saying is, but they've already logged in as a member.
Yes.
So the system will populate, will identify them as member number 1, 2, 3, 4,
yes.
because they logged in as member 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Same thing with, are you a current PFAC member? We don't need to ask them that because the system's already recognizing them.
Right.
All right, bar number. Is that a custom attribute that you've collected on your members?
Yeah, I don't see any reason why we need that.
bar number?
Okay.
Yeah. We don't need that.
Awesome. So far we've been asking for built-in and custom attributes. Built-in and custom attributes communicate with the members' profiles, takes information from the form submission and stores it in the profile, Or it works vice versa, where it takes information from the profile and auto-populates it on the form. So that's the kind of the cool thing about built-in and custom attributes. It's communicating with the member's profile. Form fields are only fields for the form submission. This is not being saved in the member's profile. This is purely being saved in the form submission. Credit requested. That would be a form field. You only need to know this per form, it's not going to apply to every single form, if that makes sense. This is something you would export from the form submissions. So we would use a form field. Am I making any sense?
Yeah, but are you, the element names, do we have a way to customize those?
So what we would do, absolutely. So just to, let's go ahead and do selection set. I'm just grabbing and dragging into the form once again. And we would say credit requested.
Oh, okay. I see okay.
We're going to update the export name, make this required, and add options. So their options are CEU, MCLE, and no credit necessary. And we would save. Now at this point, our form is pretty much done. Well, it is done, but I want to show you guys a couple of additional items. Is there a price amount associated with this form?
Yes.
No, not for
How much?
Well, I mean, normally there would be, so it could be $35.
for members, 45 for members.
They're a split pricing, member, non-member pricing.
So these form elements, most of these are just as what you just saw me do. Country, it's just a drop down of all the countries, and you can update the label name. Date, it's just an area where when you click in it, it brings up a calendar, and you can type in like birth date or something like that. File. File is what I'll use. I saw one of your applications required a resume. This is where they could select a button and upload a file. So this would say like resume. Always updating our export name. Or upload your resume. Continuing to work down this line, image is just where they can upload an image. We're going to come back to number and selection set. States, just a drop down of states. Text is just a blank text field. You can literally ask for anything and they can type in anything in just a blank text box.
Okay.
Coming back to number and selection set. These two are special because they can be used for monetary amounts. For example, selection set, you could say, would you like to attend the mental disorders class? Always bringing our label down into our export name, making it required. We can make it a price field. Add selections, option limits, and base pricing. If they say yes, they pay $35. If they say no, which I don't know why they would register and say no, but if they did, they would pay no dollars. You can even add a limit to how many people can register for this class in this area. So sometimes I see not yes and no, but sometimes I see yes in person, no, or yes webinar. Maybe webinar is only 15. There's an unlimited amount of people who can come to the webinar, but maybe you only have 50 seats for the in-person attendees. At that point, we would just hit save.
That's awesome.
Now we can also do member type pricing. This is a new button that just popped up. If I click member type pricing, I can say, well, if somebody is prospect or part of the public, I'm going to add that column. They have to pay $50 or $25. they will not see the base price. They will only see the price associated with their member or non-member type. So for an additional example, maybe emeritus members. They have to pay, maybe they get to come for free. They would only see, as an emeritus logged in, they would only see $0 pop up as the options.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Great. Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Well, for the retirees.
Did you say what about retirees?
No, she was just saying something to me that it was.
Okay, got it.
Okay.
I love it. Okay, so one thing that is so important that, golly, I think probably 10 out of 10 of my clients forget. Edit the payment processor and revenue account. It's this third button. You have to tell that money where it's going when you collect it. Otherwise,
Right.
you're never going to be able to determine where your money's coming from. So payment, yeah, that's no fun. So we've always got our default payment processor, which is authorized.net. The invoice line item, this is how the invoice line item will read on the invoice. We don't want the invoice line item to say, would you like to attend the mental disorders class? We would want it to say something along the lines of mental disorders class fee or class total, right?
Well, we would be actually labeling it as, this isn't something that the attendee is going to see, right?
It is. It's the line item that will appear on their invoice.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. And then the last piece of this is the revenue account. You'll choose a revenue account from here.
Uh-huh, okay.
And we're going to hit save.
Yeah.
Hey, I have your revenue accounts, right? When I was looking at our notes earlier, you left me a note that said that you were waiting for that information from your financial person.
Yeah, but I sent them to you, I think, after that. Yeah.
Okay, I'll go back and I'll look again. I just didn't have a chance to double check. I just saw that and wanted to make sure. I'm going to get your little paper out and write it on there. Got it. Okay. So you would choose your revenue account. That tells you where the money's going. So you'll have to do that for every field that has money associated with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I mentioned there was one other special field. That's the number field. I'm grabbing and dragging the number field into my form. Now, this can only collect numbers, no special characters, no spaces. Not super useful. And I mean, I don't know how many, bar number, I guess, but other than that, not super useful. But you can once again make this a price field. The first option might be, how many tickets do you need to the upcoming luncheon? This is kind of a silly example, but obviously each ticket's not going to cost $1. We need to update. Each ticket might cost $40. So if they say they need 2 tickets, the total on their invoice would read 80. It'll multiply however many tickets they need by however much amount is here per unit.
Okay. Great.
The other side of this is it can also just be a currency input. This would be, how much would you like to donate?
Mm-hmm.
Once again, because you're collecting money, whatever you're using this for, you have to select the revenue account. And you don't want the line item to read number. You would want it to read like donation total.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And do they see what's in the memo field?
They do not see what's in the memo field. That's for you guys.
Okay.
That would show up on the transaction report.
Kimberly has to answer a phone call. Sorry, we've been going back and forth with this person.
No, you're totally fine. Do you want me to wait on her, or do you have any questions I can answer just for you?
Yeah, can you hold on for just 1 second?
That's totally fine.
Sorry, Adrienne.
No, you're fine.
Did you want to do credit card, or did you drop the check in? Oh, I have it. Okay, let me go ahead and I'll go back through it and see if it is by chance I just missed it. Not a problem. I will give you. Okay, let me go back through and see if it's in there. I know I have a couple of voicemails, so let me go ahead and go check them out, and I will either call you or email you. If it's not there, I'll give you a yell. Okay? All right, Paige. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. That sums up all of the form fields. The last item that we have to review are the presentation items. These just have to do with how the form presents itself. So, for example, these different sections that you see here, the event section and general section. If you guys happen to miss checking off what type of form you're using this form for, you don't have to delete the whole form. You can always manually bring in an event section or manually bring in a general section. And then from here, just build out, by adding in the fields, looking at the properties and changing the name of the, maybe this is going to be donation form. That's going to donate on our update on our tab for that section. So in this case, we don't need to use this, but just showing you guys you can bring in these fields, or I should say these sections yourself. We can also use something like a horizontal line. It's just a horizontal line to act as a separator.
Mm-hmm.
A label. A label is what we would call a text box. So this is how you would add in like a text box of directions, instructions, disclaimers. Please note there will be no refunds 72 hours before the class. It's just going to pop up on the form as a text box. Okay. And then the last couple items that we have, page break. These are typically built-in. This is an example of a page break here. If you wanted to add in a manual page break, you can only do that on a general form. So if you had a survey of like 20 questions, you might want to add in a couple of manual page breaks. White space, it's just white space. Once again, just another separator. And that is it. So this is your form. Now, the only other item that I want to do is teach you guys how to test these forms. Before I do that, any additional questions?
That was going to be my question. How do we see what it looks like to the attendee, and how do we test it?
Awesome. So I think the easiest way to test forms is by using an incognito window. In Chrome, do you guys use, what browser do you use?
Chrome.
So you'll either have a little red dot or a yellow dot or 3 little stacked dots that are vertically stacked. It just depends on what version of Chrome you have. Mine's this little red dot with a white arrow inside. Underneath these settings, there is an option, new incognito window. Have you guys used this before?
Yeah.
Perfect. So you can bring up a new incognito window, and we would type in, for example, PFAC.memberclicks.net, but we're grabbing the alias from our form. It's always under form settings, and there's that alias. All we would need to do from here is put it after a /. This is going to bring in the login section. I'm going to log in as a new user. The reason you're doing this is because I don't want you guys to test your forms as an admin, because it'll look differently. You want to see what this is going to look like to your members. The only way to do that is if you were taking the form as a member or a non-member, right? So I'm going to come in here and put a totally fake email address. It does not matter what it is. Register. The password can be as simple as the number 1. And we're going to say create profile. At this time, I've had a prospect profile created for me. we're going to select register yourself. And now you can go through these different options, these different fields. So we're just putting in our different, oops. Those different fields. I'm going to hit next. And then we're going to review the summary section. And if we're ready, we're going to hit submit. I don't want you guys to submit any of these until the form is 100% ready to go as is, because remember, if a form submission has been created for a form, you can't delete it.
Right.
Okay.
Got it.
Did that make sense? Any questions on that process?
I have a question. So how come it's showing you with a 0 balance?
In this instance, it's because there is no amount, and I turned on in the payment section, I turned on that this was authorized.net. I don't know if I can make this go away at this point. I should have gone previous. Let's see. Next. Yeah, because I turned on the pricing section, this is popping up. If you don't turn on the pricing section, then this will just, on this previous page at the bottom, it just says submit.
Okay.
But typically it sounds like you guys would have a pricing section included.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, except for these previous ones.
So I know it's probably going to take you guys some time to like copy those old forms and rename them. All you really need to do is rename them, and if you don't need to put pricing in.
Yeah.
Do you guys want to review maybe later this week? If you do you guys want to take some time to go ahead and create some of those old forms, and then we can review them together and create a couple of form submissions together, so you guys feel comfortable in the process?
What I'd like to do is have a try at creating some of those and send you the links and see if we did them right.
Yeah, that sounds perfect. That sounds perfect. Okay. Well, other than this, we only have one more training, and that is social community. I'm going to go ahead and send you the video on the social community training. But I want you to have plenty of time before we do that to get in here and learn forms and content and feel comfortable, because the social community is so intuitive. Do you guys want to go ahead and schedule kind of a touch base call then, maybe early next week?
Yeah. I think we're both, Kimberly and I are feeling a little overwhelmed. So I think we need to get in and work on some of this stuff and start actually, doing it. The struggle to me is, I shouldn't say struggle. The challenge to me is, we've got a lot to do, and there's a lot of overlap that kind of needs to happen with the current system and the new system. Mm-hmm. So, just organizing that correctly and making sure that when we do launch, that we have, that it's a clean, correct launch, because this is changing several, this is going to be making some fairly significant changes to some of the ways that people are used to, doing things, with, in particular with the meetings submissions. So we need to get that really tight.
Absolutely. I totally understand. Let's go ahead, just because my calendar does fill up kind of quickly, and if it needs to be changed, it can be. But could we go ahead and maybe just put an hour down for Tuesday or Wednesday, so we can use that time to go over questions that come up while y'all are working on some of those items? Okay.
You mean like tomorrow or like next week or this week?
I was thinking next week, because I want you all to have enough time to really get your hands kind of in the system. Right.
Yeah, let me just get into my calendar. So Tuesday, I could do Tuesday, Wednesday. I'm going to be in San Diego. I'm not going to be in the office for at least the morning, full morning.
Okay. So Tuesday you won't be in the office in the morning, so I could do either Monday afternoon or Wednesday afternoon.
Tuesday is fine. Wednesday I won't be in the office in the morning, so Tuesday would be preferred.
How about 3 p.m. Eastern time, or that's kind of during your lunch, 2 p.m. Eastern
That's
time?
fine. Noon is fine. Yeah.
3? Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, I've got us down for 3 p.m. Eastern time, noon your time on Tuesday the 13th, just to start talking about questions. I'll send you a follow-up